Good evening. I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I'd like to call this December the 6th regularly scheduled meeting of the board to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board in a moment of silent reflection? It gives us opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, but also to clear our hearts and minds for the business we're going to talk about here tonight. So a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Item 3 on this evening's agenda is to approve minutes of the meetings held on November the 9th and the 15th of 2021. You received those electronically. Any questions or any discussion about those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for meetings held on November the 9th and the 15th of 2020 as presented? So moved. Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion in regard to the minutes for those meetings? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 4, discussion items and presentations. We have nothing this evening, but we do have nothing under discussion items and presentations, but action items number 5, we'll move on to that. And the first item, Mrs. Atkins, is approval of the amended NCBOE policy BDR school board meetings, and that's been out on comment.
That is correct, and there were no comments. I'm going to give you a copy of the policy because it was not in your board packet, and also a copy of the advisory opinion issued by the Ethics Commission that said that under the Ethics Act that it was not improper to record executive sessions, but that school boards were within their rights, or any public agency then could develop policies that would prohibit the recording of executive sessions. So that's just for your reference. What this policy update will do, I've actually combined 2 policies, so when we approve this, I'll also be asking you to repeal policy BCD, which is our current policy on executive sessions, because I just rolled it into our school board meetings policy. I just figured that was a cleaner way to do it. This will just prohibit any board member or employee from recording executive sessions. If you look over the types of things that we can go into executive sessions for, those are matters that they're confidential. Many of them deal with personal information of employees and students, and if there's a recording of that information that exists that's not under the control of this office, we could have confidential information that's required to be protected by law that could be disclosed to people, and in my legal opinion could open up this board to lawsuits.
This policy, BDR, it actually is listing the areas, the 10 areas, I think it's on page 3. The board may enter into executive session to consider the following, and it lists the matters there. It's pretty much right straight from state code, isn't it?
That is correct.
Mrs. Atkins?
That is correct.
And, I read an article it's about a month ago in the Charleston Gazette by the Ethics Commission, and they were noting that you could record. There's nothing that says you can't record unless, but their recommendation is that the board would develop policy to this matter, because there certainly matters of, what it says here, they could open themselves up to disclosing personal information. They could open themselves up to possible lawsuits. And this is coming from the Commissioner of the Ethics Commission.
The chairman of the
The chairman.
commission, yes.
And he's advising that we develop policy to state such. And I know that we've had executive sessions where we've had to discuss some pretty serious information that if, without making our policy state that we're not to record in executive session. We can't record in there. If someone could record in there, but we've discussed some very sensitive matters of, situations of things that happen in our school system with personnel. And we really have to, I feel that we need to do this in order to protect the privacy of our, well, first of all, to protect the board corporately and individually from lawsuits or those types of matters, but also to protect our personnel and our citizens about matters of privacy in regard to their work and to their involvement with the school system. So I thank you for, Mrs. Atkins, for doing this review and updating this policy. And I think it's pretty clear we will not be recording in executive sessions should this policy pass.
That's correct, and also, just to stress again, that with passage of this, I'm also asking you to repeal NCBOE policy BCD, which is our current policy on executive sessions.
How would you interpret the last sentence there on page 2, third paragraph? This advisory opinion does not address the applicability of the West Virginia Freedom of Information Act.
So any document that we have in our possession could be subject to a Freedom of Information Act request. So if you had recordings of executive session and someone would issue a FOIA request for that, we could potentially have to turn that over. Which, and if that contains information that deals with that would be like in a personnel file or a student file, that could be very problematic.
And there have been no changes in this since we were issued this at the last meeting?
Correct. The changes are underlined there.
Okay.
Are there any further questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to this policy BDR on school board meetings, particularly dealing with executive sessions? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Atkins. We'll move on to item B, approval of the contract with David Shepard for PD and student services. Dr. Lee.
This came as a request from our secondary schools. They had, prior to COVID, started working with him on having him come to work. He is a national speaker who works with climate and culture and motivation. And when COVID hit, of course, their plans kind of got squelched, but they're ready to resume. And our intent is to have him come to work with the secondary staff members the first day back after vacation on that PL day. And then he's going to stay over and the next day work with secondary students. He focuses mainly on, you see this on his contract, but with the kids it's more of how you need to adjust yourself to adjust after COVID. He focuses his discussion on the 4 Ps that he calls pride, purpose, passion, and persistence. And of course, the teachers, it's more of the motivation, and the title of this one is, Will You Make All-American When You're Having a Bad Season? And those will be paid for out of federal funds.
Any questions from Dr. Lee in regard to this contract with David Shepard for professional development and student services?
How, the student session, how's that going to be administered?
I didn't bring the schedule with me. Right now, he will spend half the day in each end of the county. Right now, we're working to secure the location at Craigsville, but he will meet for part of the time with grades 6, 7, and 8. Then he's going to meet with grades 9 and 10 separately, and then 11 and 12 separately, because they have, different places where they are educationally. then he'll come to the other end of the county and do the same thing.
And this is just all about helping them cope with COVID.
Any further questions for Dr. Lee?
Is there a grant that will help pay for this? Or?
Yeah, we're going to use federal funds with it.
Any further questions?
Is that maximum of 2 days, is that month?
No, just 2 days in January.
Or just 2 days, that's it?
That's it for now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All I had to do was look.
It's all good.
Any further questions? Dr. Lee, thank you.
Do you want me to talk about the other one? I'm letter D as well.
Well, we'll go ahead and skip down to letter D and let you talk about
While
that.
I'm here. This is with Adventure, which is an educational organization out of Morgantown you're probably familiar with. We currently have a partnership with them with 3 of our schools that they're currently working with in relation to parent-family engagement. What we would like for them to do is basically spread their services a little further around so that all of our schools, or at least will have had the administrator trained in some of the techniques and things that they're using with their schools that are in the grant. And that'll be occurring during one of our principals' meetings.
And is that paid for through grant funding?
Well, through staff development funds, yes.
Staff development, okay. Any further questions in regard
Is
to?
that a 1 day?
Yes,
Okay.
one time.
That's just a one-time.
And that includes her travel and all of that.
It's all
Yeah,
that's
it's all in
in
there.
per day
Travel and
charge.
fees, yes.
So it would be a day of just working with administrators, correct?
Yes.
Any further questions for Dr. Lee in regard to the approval of the contract with Caleb Benson on behalf of the Adventure Group? Dr. Lee, thank you. Item C is approval of the grant of authority to the superintendent to authorize the payment of utilities to avoid late payment fees. Any action taken under this authority will be ratified at the next board meeting.
So I'll start off with this, and I've got Melissa here to further explain, and Kevin to jump in as well. So I don't feel comfortable sending communications to the board, asking for or asking you to let me know if you have an issue with paying a bill in between board meetings. I just don't feel comfortable with that. I think the cleanest way to do that is to grant me the authority to authorize payments. I put in this notice for utility bills, but after speaking with Kevin, he said there's actually more instances other than utility bills. And if this board would allow me to authorize the payment, and then, of course, the authority would be ratified at the next board meeting, it would be a much, cleaner way to handle things. If not, then, we would be subject to, late fees and things like that by the way bills come out sometimes. And Melissa might be able to better speak to it if you have questions, and Kevin. But it's just one of those things that I just don't feel right having a communication to go out to this board and to make you aware of, because you're not taking action, so I would rather assume that responsibility or that authority to say, yes, that looks okay, I think it's needed, this board entrusts me to make that decision, and then this board ratify it at the next board meeting. Yeah, I think this could avoid potential Open Meetings Act issues. Not saying that the other way is any type of violation, but I don't want any appearance whatsoever of there being any type of impropriety. As you know, the entire time I've been here, there's never been an audit finding of our treasurer, of our money. It's come out spotless every time. And Kevin, I know, has told me that it's been years and years and years and years. He comes out with zero findings. I mean, our audits are perfect. So, you know, I don't have any issues with that, but I just, you know, I'm always looking to make things cleaner, you know, I just think it would be a cleaner approach, a better approach.
So let me, these would be payments for things that potentially might be late. If we don't
Yes.
pay them now, or if there's something that has to be dealt with before the next board meeting that needs to be paid, or we could lose a grant or something like that, or whatever. Is that what you're speaking of?
Yes.
Just those items only, and then you would come back at the next board meeting and have them ratified.
Would that also involve payments for our construction phases, whether they may need to be in as soon as, or okayed as soon as we get
He's
them
asking
to keep things moving?
to extend more than utilities. Originally, I said utilities. Kevin, after reviewing that, said really,
Typically, it's going to be your utilities. We have our P-card statement. It doesn't always fall in line with our board meetings, so they will charge us late fees and penalties and interest if we don't pay that on time. As far as these construction projects go, we can pretty well plan those payments out to match a board meeting, and I would prefer that actually go through a board meeting as opposed to putting that on Dr. Peter's shoulders. But just like tonight, you're going to approve a payment that we're in the process of getting approved through FEMA. But I'm just getting the payment. I got the check ready. We're going to hold the checks, get the board approval. So as soon as we do receive the money back from FEMA, we can go ahead and remit that money straight out, just to reduce the lag time that the contractors are experiencing or may experience.
yes, so he's able to think ahead and plan ahead for those known bills from contractors. You know, he always does that, but it's just those bills in between times that could cost us, you know, cause us issues with penalties and things like that.
You're referring to, like in the middle of the day, we'll get a text, would you approve this?
Well, it'll be not really approve, it would be, before, we had some approvals like for bus, for transportation. And at that time, I said, I do not feel comfortable in sending something out because it was a situation that students, if the board was not okay with them traveling, they would have missed events. COVID really caused a lot of that because we would have cancellations and it would go from, you know, maybe a meet in Calhoun County, maybe as in Fayette County. It'd be as simple. So waiting for board action, the kids would have missed those events. So I came back and asked this board if you would allow me to do those bus approvals. And you did, which it's made things more streamlined, it's much more efficient, because it really wasn't necessary for the board to make those approvals. So, so that's why you no longer get those types of requests. I'm able to make those approvals, it's going smoothly. So the only other thing that I know of that would cause concern, and I'm always really careful, I know the way things were put, we were never asking for approval from the board, it was making you aware of an action that needed to occur. And, you know, if you had an issue, you could have always said you had an issue, but it wasn't, it was just making you aware of an action that occurred. So the board wasn't taking an action. I just think this is much cleaner. I went to Melissa and I said, you know, I don't feel comfortable, you know, sending this out to board members. What's your thoughts? And she said, well, I think it would be simple this way. And Kevin said, yeah, it probably would be, so.
I can just say that I know this is perfectly legal. This is the way we do it on the PSD board. Because with utilities, if you're a day late, you get charged 10% penalty fee, and that can add up to a lot of money. And the way that these, especially your electric bills come due, they're different times, they're not the same time every month, and
that'd be the only time that we ever would ask Dr. Teeter to take that responsibility in the event that it was going to cost the board, or affect the board in a negative way. If it can wait,
yeah.
we'll run it through the board meeting.
Well, the way that we do it is any regular bill that we get consistently every month, and if it has the potential to, you know, get a late fee, then you know, I can go ahead and authorize it as the treasurer, but, yeah.
So that would kind of cover P cards, but you were asking like regular bills.
If it's a regular bill that you
Regular
pay
recurring
every
bill.
month, and to
So-
keep from, like, you know, getting a late fee or,
It does, but I mean, again, there are things that pop up. You'll have, it may sit on someone's desk too long, and then by the time we get it in and get it processed, it may not be a utility or a P card. It could be something just once or twice a year that someone's not used to getting or processing. So it would be more convenient if we had that flexibility to just pay anything that may negatively impact the board. Again, no desire to ask her to do that more than it may be necessary.
I would ask, should we grant this, that at the next board meeting, you identify those and say, these, we went ahead and paid because there was a.
You would be ratifying.
You would be ratified.
Yeah, be
So it
ratified.
would just need to be ratified.
But I'm saying, not just, don't just give us a
Oh,
financial
no,
statement
separate.
like this, but note, you know, these items have already been paid.
Sure.
And we pay them because of that. So
Yeah.
that'd just be the best way to keep us informed, you know,
Sure.
so what's going
Yeah,
on.
that'd be great. We can do that.
Do we use the P card to pay utilities?
Just a few, not very many at all.
Not all.
anymore.
Any further questions or discussions in regard to item C under action items?
What would we call that? Other bills other than, so on this, it says utilities. The statement of payment of bills, utilities, or any bill that could negatively impact, and delay would negatively impact the board.
Okay.
Delay of payment would negatively impact the board.
You want to state that again for the
So
secretary?
utilities and what?
Utilities, bills paid on a regular basis, or any other bill that would negatively impact the board if payment is delayed.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to ask you to read that back to us when you get it done.
and it's like the Somersville Waterworks on here, $2,952.43. It's for multiple locations. But if that was a day late, it would be a $295 penalty. If it was a day late, like going through the mail, they didn't get it.
Utilities, bills.
And sometimes depending on when the second board meeting falls, like this one will be on
If payment is delayed.
20th.
we could get one on the 21st, may have 10 days to pay it. Well, the next meeting's what, January 4th, and it'd be late. So it's just sporadic how things fall sometimes, and I wish everybody, you would think the term would normally be 30 days, but it's not always. Sometimes we get 10 days to pay something.
Madam Secretary?
Approval of the grant of authority to the superintendent to authorize the payment of utilities, bills paid on regular basis, or any other bill that would negatively impact the board if payment is delayed. To avoid late payment fees, any actions taken under this authority will be ratified at the next board meeting.
I think that pretty clearly states it, so.
Well, and you could do a sub-page like you do
We will do
for
something.
contract or whatever and separate them that way.
Any further questions in regard to item C and the way that the Secretary just stated that motion, or that item? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve action items A, B, C, and D, A, B, and D as presented, and C as just recently amended by Mrs. Atkins? Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Amick seconds. Any further discussion in regard to action items, approval of action items A, B, C, and D? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 6, consent items, finance, Mr. Hess. Madam Superintendent, in the future, could you hold back on complimenting the treasurer so highly about all he does? His head gets bigger every time he comes up to talk. Go ahead.
Well, he
Ken.
does a good job.
He even had to get a new set of sunglasses.
That's right. Oh, gosh, okay.
After we approve.
Okay, so I did hand out a few checks that we just ran today for Friday that did not make it in the board packet, that will need to be paid prior to our next board meeting. So those were stapled together and I handed those out for your review. And the first item on the finance agenda is payment of current invoices, if you have any questions there.
Two of these are contracts that we're going to look at tonight.
Those are change order contracts with Canal Stone.
For
That's
these
true.
amounts.
Pardon me?
It's for these amounts.
Yes, yes.
So
And they're change
Oh,
orders?
they're not change, no. The change orders are deduct orders, actually.
Yeah.
And the pay apps are
This is finished now, the
for
contract?
for monies to finish the contract that we're currently requisitioning through FEMA. So you'll see in that stapled portion there, you'll see two checks to Canal Stone, and one for $372,631. The next one's for $442,071.14. Those are two pay applications that we're just now processing, and as soon as we get the money, we'll remit those funds.
This is for the completion of the work at Cherry River, correct? On the
There were some
site work?
delays in getting some change orders processed, so we were holding the pay applications until those change order requirements were submitted. And so finally we got those, and I have those change orders to ask the board to approve them out tonight as well.
You mentioned also that this is payment and then the other is a deduct, correct?
You're right. The change orders are a deduct in the contract price, and the change orders are just part of what we owed them for the work that was completed.
So, and the deduct is a deduction in the contract price, right?
Right.
Gotcha, thank you.
Which one is the deduct?
This one
Well,
here, it's a-
if you'll hang on just a second, we're going to get down through that section that's in the packet. Did you have any other questions on payment of current invoices?
But then that deduct will add back into the project, correct?
It will be monies that will
They
be
will owe us
available on the
back.
project, yes.
Right, okay.
that'll be added or taken from FEMA. That'll be from FEMA.
The what?
These contracts and.
Yeah, it's fully paid through FEMA and the state, yes. It will not cost the county anything.
Okay, so it's not included in the year-to-date 461,000. I mean, it couldn't be.
The year-to-date.
FEMA year-to-date, FEMA
Oh,
428
no,
year-to-date.
it's not in that's for your October treasurer's report. It's not included in that yet. No.
And one of these is for May and one's for July. Well, wait till we get the contracts. I'm sorry. I'm jumping back and forth here.
I can't remember, but I can look that up for you.
Are there any further questions from Mr. Hess in regard to payment of current invoices? Transfers and supplements.
Transfers and supplements, we had a few this month. Down to those. First one is a scholarship for Richwood High School. They were given $35,976.88 from an estate to be used for scholarships. It was the estate of E. Schultz, and so we have accounted for that in a separate line item for them to distribute at their direction. Next one is eSurf Round 2, $1,518,299.57. And that's your federal stimulus money, essentially. And then the next one is Emergencies Operation CACFP monies, $4,192 for child nutrition supplies, followed by $3,063, which is the EPT funds, mainly budgeted into salaries. Then we have $35,000 truancy diversion grant, state grant. $84,000 21st Century grant is next, most of which is budgeted into salaries. And then the high cost, high acuity grant, $1,806. And then another high cost, high acuity grant for $2,994. And the treasurer's report is for the month of October. And the first page there are the revenues for the general fund. And you can see on the first column, our total budget for the general fund is $58,982,000. We have received $12,122. As of October, we had approximately $46,856 to receive, of which we have about $21.5 million on hand already. So our budget balance to receive is actually approximately about $25 million. Most of that will be state aid and local property taxes. Debt service, there was no revenue. Capital projects fund, we had a total budget there of $169 million. Total revenues received in this fiscal year from July through October was $594,000, which are funds that we have requested through SBA, through West Virginia DSUM, into the federal funds, and then back to Nicholas County Board. So in that project, there's $168 million yet to receive. If we flip to the next page, our general special revenue fund, that's your federal and state grants, $10.3 million budget. We received $1.6 million. We have $8.6 million to receive. All of those funds are reimbursed based upon our expenditure first. And then finally, our federal stimulus money, as of October, there was $4.4 million budgeted. We've received $793,000 and $3.6 million to receive. Looking at the expenses on the next page, our general fund, as I said before, our total budget is $58.9 million. Our biggest expenditure is regular and secondary education. As you can see on the first line, $18.2 million. We've spent just over $3 million. We have $9.1 million encumbered for payroll, which would leave just over $6 million for all the other expenses that we may have in that category. And so we break all of our budget down into all those different sections, and it follows that same format. Across the bottom, $58.9 million budget. We have spent $7.2 million. Our payroll is estimated for the remainder of the year to be $19.8 million, which will leave about $31 million to cover all these other expenses.
And that's 46%.
Yeah. Our payroll is like 86% of our total budget, so it's the vast majority of what we do. Next page is the debt service fund. There's no activity in that fund. Capital projects fund, again, $168 million budget. We've spent $461,000. We have $10,000 encumbered, which will leave $168,571,622 remaining in that.
Now, those two payments to Kanawha Stone will be added into the FEMA expenditures.
They sure will. Where you see $461,000, it'll be in that in December.
Okay.
That's all that we spent so far on the 428?
Yep, that's all that we've spent is through October
Of this year,
of this year,
of this fiscal.
through October. we were delayed in getting payments for a long time. And so they're due, I'd have to go back and look.
We paid more since then.
We're several months waiting to be reimbursed, which we were just notified today or end of last week that a lot of those funds have been approved and should be heading our way. So we have you'll see a lot of disbursements in December towards this project. This
We've
one,
spent a lot more money than that, property purchases and,
and since July, this is the
that's what I'm saying. I clarify from the time frame you're talking about.
Yeah,
I
this is
think
for July. Oh, yeah. So every year this starts over.
Okay.
If we go back and we add up the expenditures for FY21, FY20, and 19 and 18, all those kind of, at the end of every year, that zeroes out. This is only for the current fiscal year. Because if you'll look at the budget, it's only $169 million, and we know it started at $177 million. So every year, we end the year, kind of closes it out, and then we bring that balance only forward. We don't bring any of those cumulative numbers into the new year.
so about 7 million,
Pardon?
about 7 million.
Altogether.
And we've spent thus far over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
Yes, because
yeah,
it's
that sounds about right.
it's cost, money for the core drilling and all the testing and
Not purchase of land.
purchase. Yep.
So some of those things that have already been approved are still in the process at FEMA and have not been
Paid, yeah.
added. Okay.
Right, yeah, they're not on this
So
list yet.
more's been spent than that, yeah.
Yes, we've incurred expenses of more than that. We just haven't written a check to pay for it.
Right, right.
We're waiting to get that money back from FEMA before we disperse the money.
And payroll's the highest expense, right?
And for the general fund, for the county, it's our highest budgeted expense, yeah.
Do you
As it is
cal-
with most counties, it's always in the mid to upper 80s.
Do you calculate all the payrolls?
I do.
Then you would be the logical person if someone had a question to refer to.
Me.
Don.
Instead, and then what would you do? Refer to him?
I will talk to him and then I will provide information.
You're a CPA?
Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Moose, I supervise all the staff here. So oftentimes when you have board members who go to individuals here and you don't directly supervise them, you're acting as a board member, it causes a lot of confusion. So the proper method is to
I'm
go
not
through.
saying I go to him, I'm saying if someone
Well-
has a question about payroll, who do they go to? You or her?
It depends on the situation. If there is a question, and it's important, again, that we follow the chain of command, and individuals who have problems with their own payroll, they may go talk to one of the coordinators here, one of the directors. So if it's an individual who has an issue with their payroll, they may talk to one of the directors.
Instead of him who calculates the payroll?
He is one.
I'm director.
He's a director.
Well, then why couldn't they just go directly to him?
There's lots of things that go into what their pay should be. You've got to look at the job posting, you've got to
Oh, I
look at
understand it's
contracts.
complicated, I
So he
understand it's
doesn't
complicated.
necessarily have all that information.
But he would be the one that would be most likely to be able to explain that.
Our employees go to the directors they know to go to. But as far as board members need to come through me. So if you have a question, I'm asking you to come through me. If it's an employee, they know which director to go to.
And they can go directly to the director.
They go directly to the director.
And we do have employees that have a question about the payroll, and they come into our office, and
Yes.
we take care of it. If they don't understand the deduction, or they don't understand how their pay is calculated, we'll sit down with them, walk them through the whole process, and hopefully at the end of our conversation, they understand or they have an answer to the question.
Yeah, that would be much more amicable, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's your capital projects fund, and then the next page is the special revenue fund. $10.3 million budget. Again, this year federal and your state grants, we've spent $2.6 million. We have $2.9 million encumbered, which will leave about $4.7 million available in those state and federal grants for expenditure. The last one there is the federal stimulus and stabilization fund, $4.4 million budget. We spent $472,000. We have $1 million encumbered, which would leave us about $2,986,000 available in those federal stimulus funds.
In those federal stimulus funds, those are, there are specific guidelines on areas that those can be expended. Is that correct? I mean,
Sure,
You
yes.
just can't just say, hey, we're going to go buy this or go do that. I mean, they have to fall into a certain specific category that fits the federal stimulus.
We were given guidelines for, there's 3 rounds, and so we've now supplemented the budget with 2 of those. We were given guidelines for each round as to how it could be or should be spent. Round 3 was the largest. It actually went through several reviews at the state level. Sarah may be able to talk about that a little bit more, but it was a whole grant process that we put together as a team. We submitted, it was reviewed. Seems like they critiqued it initially. We came back and made changes to it, resubmitted, approved, and then we were authorized to spend it.
And it's put into addressing learning loss, summer enrichment, after-school programs.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Addressing learning loss, summer enrichment, after-school programs, and there were certain percentages of it that had to fit into those categories.
Gotcha.
We had to actually go do a presentation in person.
But we haven't received that money yet, have we?
No, it's a U.S., we have to spend it first.
And then they'll fall
Yeah,
back down.
yeah.
But we've gotten the first 2, correct?
We've received some of it that we spent, and we've asked for
But not all the
reimbursement.
second one.
Right.
Well, where would these COVID funds and CARES funds fit in? Are they federal stimulus or?
That's fine.
Mhm.
Are
Round
we out?
1 is what was initially referred to as the CARES stimulus money. And then round 2, they started calling it ESERF and
ARP's round 3.
ARP's round 3. So they have different acronyms for every round, but
And it's all gone?
no. We're still, I think we spent all of round 1. We're working on round 2, and we are in the processes of spending round 3, some of it.
Round 3 was by far the biggest.
Yeah, what do you remember the total number?
Was it
Was
11?
it 9?
I think it was 11.
It was 11.
Kids initially started at 11.
Can it be used to supplement salaries, like the teachers that have been quarantined repeatedly and are losing their sick leave because of the quarantines? Is there any way we can help them out through?
That was not in the approved funding. That's not what our package approval was for.
And that doesn't address the goals either of learning loss, summer enrichment.
Is there anything we can do to address that?
Only options that we have is if an entire class is quarantined with the teacher, and the teacher can teach from home. That's the way it's handled. Now, of course, teachers had the opportunity, staff had the opportunity to get vaccinated. If they got vaccinated, then they're not being quarantined. So, you know, there's trade-offs for that. So that's been some of the provisions that we've worked with. If the teacher is quarantined with the class, then the teacher can teach through Teams. If the teacher is quarantined, then they have, their class is not quarantined, of course, then they have to take their days. It's been some issues been discussed around the state. Counties have all done it differently, and it was really quite heavily discussed prior to individuals having the opportunity to get the vaccine. So if they're vaccinated, they don't quarantine.
So it's being done differently in different places.
It's being done differently, but in most places, they are not offering. They're not offering that because people have the opportunity to get the vaccine.
Okay, well,
And then
what
it's
if
hard
they've
to
been
hear.
vaccinated and still,
Test positive.
test positive?
Well, then that's unfortunate because that's, it, you know, it's gonna get some like that, I realize, but when we did our package, you know, there was a lot of things to consider when we had the group together, we did the package. We did not include for teachers getting time off for COVID. So, you know, and there's lots of reasons for that, and there's lots of counties that have addressed it differently. For example, we've got wonderful staff here. You know, in Nicholas County, we've got great staff members. So, you know, but there's been issues in counties that people will opt to be quarantined when the counties were given the funding, and they would opt to get quarantined again, and they would opt to get quarantined again. Those types of things happen. And then you've got others who wouldn't dream of asking to be quarantined. So there's a lot of things that had to be considered. So I'm hopeful that the number of people who are being quarantined now are very few being reinfected. I mean, I don't have a good answer for you, but there was reasoning for that. Also hoping that you know, the staff, that 3% stipend will also help them some too.
Yeah, it's another one of those problems that it's impossible to deal with.
It is, it's hard.
Right, and I think there were some, I'm sure some may have claimed sick leave and some may have not. You know, I'm sure there's some variation there.
We'd had that happen when we had up until December with some of the leave. You know, it was reported to me that it was discretionary with some staff members, and, you know, it was reported that some said, well, on the safe side, I'd like to go ahead and just quarantine. So then they got covered for quarantine pay. It didn't happen. It wasn't very many people who did that, but, you know, it happens. And then when the federal government quit giving the money, because they were taking care of that up until December of, 2 years ago, and then when they stopped it, this county did not pick it up and offer the additional, you know, people paid for it out of general fund. Again, a lot of counties took the stance that I took, and that is, once the vaccine came out, it will be fewer numbers of people that would have to quarantine. But unfortunately, if people choose not to vaccinate, they're going to be more at risk of being quarantined, and it's going to cost them their days. I mean, it's unfortunate, and I really don't have a good answer. And like I said, our folks here, I don't believe, abuse things typically. But
Yeah, I know some of them that were vaccinated and caught it still had to quarantine and used their days,
yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
because they thought that was the right way.
Do you have an approximation of what that costs while the government's paying? Have any idea?
No, we could try to calculate that if we knew the number of days that were paid, the people and the number of days that they missed prior to December 31, we could try to calculate that.
That would be difficult, you have to go back to all the quarantine
That would be-
records and.
that
It
would
would
you're
be
talking-
challenging, it would be challenging to determine.
that would be considerable time to put into that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it, I'm just saying you have to give you all the quarantine records of staff, and, you know, that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't label those as they came in. And really, we continue to pay them, so there's not anything entered against them when they were
Because we paid them.
We just continued that on, so.
And it didn't come in a lump sum then? The government didn't say, here's this much and this is all you get? No, it had to be, okay.
I don't see this over here. Okay, so yeah, actually, Sarah had some numbers.
Well, we used it in our presentation.
Yeah, it was part of the, right.
Oh, that's right.
According to this, during the 2020-21 year, there was 169 days of COVID leave claimed.
During that fall semester.
How many?
169.
That was the last year, last fall year
Well,
ago.
in the fall, when we had the COVID leave.
When we had the COVID leave,
It
that
didn't
was-
have that fall semester.
That was
COVID
20,
leave
right?
expired a year ago
Yeah.
this month.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes,
so the fall of 2020.
yes.
2021, yeah, the fall of 20.
Yeah.
So,
169 days.
169 days, yeah.
And we don't know the number of days this year, which has been from January 1 until current, of people that we've had to, have had to take days.
And how many of those were vaccinated and how many of those were unvaccinated
Yeah.
who got,
Yeah.
I mean, it's tricky.
Record, keep it nice.
So if they
Yes.
caught COVID and they were vaccinated, they didn't have to quarantine if they had COVID?
No, they have to quarantine. You don't have to, so if you are in
But
a
if
class and
student-
you've been
if a student had
quarantined,
it in the
the
class,
teacher doesn't have to
then they would
quarantine.
have to
But if
do
the
it.
teacher shows symptoms,
No.
then the teacher has to quarantine. Or if the teacher is positive, then the teacher has to quarantine.
Yeah, also, I just want to point out too, if a teacher or an employee contracts COVID while at work, they can file a workers' comp claim. So if they're getting infected at school, they can file a workers' comp claim. So that,
Really?
yes.
They don't know that. They do now, I guess.
Well, no, we've told them, I mean, we can remind them, but that's been put out there. And I mean, people call me when they get quarantined, if they're out of days, they will call me and say, hey, what can I do? And so we work with them, but yeah, if they're an employee and they contracted COVID at work, they could file a workers' comp claim.
The question is, how do they know they caught it there? Or
I know.
if they had students
Yeah.
in the class, I mean,
Well,
that's,
I know, I tested positive for COVID a year ago. I know exactly where I got it and who I got it from. I mean, it's pretty slam dunk. So sometimes they don't know, but most of the time you do. You've been around people who were
I mean,
positive.
if it's a class, if it's a
Yeah.
class and you've got
Students
several
are positive.
students, then you
Right.
could probably assume that you got it at school.
Yeah.
I think workers' comp they would try to challenge that probably.
Yep.
Because, it's.
I mean, are they agreeing with the employee?
We've never had an employee, we've not had an employee pursue that yet.
Plus with workers' comp, don't you have to be on so many days before they kick
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
And they only pay 60% of your daily
Yeah.
salary.
But that's better than
So-
nothing. So, but it's better than
It's still not
nothing.
your full daily salary.
But you
And
can
I'll-
7 days a week.
And I would think that, if the health department, when they did their COVID tracing, they could use that as evidence to say, okay, well, according to COVID tracing, it's likely that I got it here. I don't know if has there been any workers' comp cases in the state?
I don't know about the state. None of our employees have filed one.
I'd be willing to bet someone in the state has, I would say. Yeah, I don't recall a single claim.
No, I know, yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't meet the threshold of days
May not.
that you have to be on.
Or I don't know that we've had employees who've gotten, that many employees who've gotten COVID at work. And then if they've gotten COVID somewhere else, then, I mean, I don't know how we can, as a school, say, okay, school system say, okay, we're gonna pay your sick days if you got COVID somewhere else other than work.
wouldn't fall under comp, because it has to be on the job.
Yeah, I would
Correct.
think that would be hard to prove.
Yeah, it would be very hard to.
Yeah.
Would you be able to claim sick days and file workman's comp?
No.
Or is it just one or the other?
You can up to the maximum daily rate that you get paid. So if comp would only cover 200, you get paid $300 a day, then you could use $100 worth of sick leave. That's an option for employees.
Any other questions?
A little sidebar. The Fifth Third Bank, where is that at?
That's the bank that holds our P card. They're the financial institution. It's here in West Virginia somewhere.
I think it's
Is it-
Huntington.
Is it Huntington? Maybe Huntington. Is it Charleston? There might be multiple locations, actually. But yeah, they used to be United, which held our P card, and then the state switched to Fifth Third Bank.
Also, the state is the one that lined it up with this bank.
Oh, yes, yeah. They control the purchase card system. So the banks bid to have that, offer that service to, you know, school systems, municipalities, county systems, a lot of the DOT, that P card system is statewide and used by a lot of different agencies. So there's billions of dollars probably that flows through that banking institution. And so they bid on it like anything else to have that. So Fifth Third won that bid probably close to 3 years ago.
I know it keeps coming up, and I keep wondering.
Well, I guess they outbid Fifth Second, man.
Okay, so
And before you go, let me ask just a couple of questions. On these, this stimulus funding, does it have a date starting to end, that grant funding that you have to have these expended by?
it does. Round 2 is next fall, I believe.
End of FY23, and round 3 is the end of FY24.
So it's kind of on an annual basis, okay, gotcha.
So,
I mean, the fiscal year basis.
so you guys have all that lined out for 3.
We're working on it.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm doing back there.
That's going to tell a lot of after-school program, maybe, get all the kids caught up.
Last month, we voted to give our employees the supplement, and when will they receive that pay?
We are going to cut a special check run on December 15th.
So they'll get it before Christmas?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And
And
that
they
will go
had
right
to
into
fill
the
out their
bank.
paper. There was an online form employees have to fill out stating that they've had extra work or whatever because of COVID. There was options. So if they fail to fill that out, they will not be in this check run.
Right.
They have to complete that.
But that will direct deposit, like their
It'll
paycheck.
just be like the paycheck. If they get a check normally, it'll be a check. If it's direct deposit, it'll go to the bank.
Now, we had a plan to build the elementary shelters,
Mhm.
outdoor educational sites.
Mhm.
Now, was that under 2?
It's under 3, and
Or
it was
was it
approved.
So we've got until 24 to do that.
It's on Rocky's to-do list.
When Rocky gets ready. So
Okay. So, number 4 is contracts, and these are 2 change orders. These are 2 change orders that, change order number 4 and change order number 5, that should have been presented to you a while back, but due to the contractor not providing the proper documentation, we were not ready to present those for approval. So therefore, we're bringing them to you now. First one is a deduct of a net amount from the contract of $14,715.51. Affected us in 2 different ways. There was an increase of $23,000 for undercut excavation, woven fabric, and some gravel. It appears it was an increase of that amount due to some change that was required at the construction site. And then there was a deduct of $37,803. And
What was that for?
I knew he was going to ask that. That was 290 ton of riprap stone and a reduction of guardrail for a total of $37,000 and some change. So the net amount between the addition and the deduction was $14,000 credit, and so we're asking to deduct from the contract amount, which was at this time was $1,493,786.58. So we actually reduced reduce the contract by $14,000. That was change order number 4. Now, if we flip down to change order number 5, that was another deduct or credit. And that detail is in here as well, so we'll find it. I had it marked here a second ago. I'm sorry, I may have done both of those at the same time. Hang on just a second. Total increase of 23,000 and then a credit of 37,000. Yeah, that was 4 and 5 I just explained. Number 4 was an increase of 23,000. Number 5 was a decrease of 37,000. So the net change between change order 4 and 5 was $14,715. So that will come off of, and the new contract price after these change orders will be $1,479,071.07. So those are the 2 change orders, and also included the pay applications that are currently outstanding as well for you, which that will tie into the checks that you approved. Any questions on those?
We're done with this contractor, correct? I mean, he's not
Yes.
doing anything else for us.
He's done.
He's done. We will finish out the, we will have some, a retainage payment to make to him, a final payment, but we're close to that now.
What is riprap? 36,719.
Crushed stone.
Stone.
Big old
Big
Rip wraps are
stones,
big, yeah.
like 4 or 5 inch diameter stone, maybe even bigger than that.
Mm.
We had a few bids to approve. The first one is Life Touch for Cherry River Elementary to do their photography. I put that in there for your review. And then we have canopy repair at Richwood High School. HSC was the only vendor. Total of $26,533. And we had, the insurance claim was just over $18,000, which we were paid that less our $2,500 deductible. So we actually received about $16,000. And so I'll go back to Brim and ask them to honor this contract price because they paid that based upon an estimate initially. So hopefully we'll get that entire amount, with the exception of $2,500.
This might be a question for Rocky. When can that work be completed?
I submit this off the list tomorrow. I'm going to get Mr. Hess and get the approved PO to give to Holton Construction. And I've been texting him, and he's waiting for approved PO, and he's going to start as soon as possible.
Is that to repair those 2 tears?
Was there 3 tiers or 2 tiers? The tiers in the roof, yes.
2,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, one on the, down next to the band room and the other up next to the cafeteria.
Yeah, where the middle school kids walk lunch and back.
So that's to protect them from the elements, correct?
Yes.
And you guys signed off on this, so I guess it's okay.
Yes, that is a good company. We've contracted to do a couple other things. They do some really good work.
Were they the only company that bid that?
Yes, they were.
Letter C under bids is a pole vault set for Richwood High School. Their entire system was destroyed in the flood. And so we put that out for bid as well. BSN Sports was the only bidder, and the total was $35,049. I'd like to ask the board to approve that. That'll fall under PW for that school, and so we should be reimbursed 100% of that cost.
Through FEMA?
Pardon?
Through FEMA?
Through FEMA. And it's FEMA and the state. FEMA and the state.
It was noted it's been lost in the flood, and they just hadn't had any place to store it. So J.D. Miller, the athletic director, came and asked if we could go ahead and bid that out, and he felt that that they could store it now.
That was the big cushions that they jump on, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Cushions and their risers.
That'd be hard to store, wouldn't it? Are they air
I think they're
or
going,
inflated?
he talked about getting a cover, and they keep them outside and cover it, but I know he talked about trying to take it in someplace too, so.
He did. We did order a cover for it, and we're working with Rocky to get a building for additional storage.
Yeah.
The elements are just hard on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he said he could put it in one of those storage buildings.
It's not part of the 428 funding, that's part of the
No,
original claim.
That's part of the original plan.
Yeah, okay, all right. Any further questions for Mr. Hess in regard to finance? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent item A as presented? Mrs. Kaufman moves, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Amick seconds the motion. Any further discussion in regard to consent item A? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Mr. Hess, thank you.
Dr. King,
Yes.
due to someone talking to me, I missed who voted first.
Oh,
Who was my first?
Mrs. Kaufman motioned and Mr. Amick seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Unanimous. Madam Superintendent, might I speak to your employees about interrupting the executive secretary? Mrs. Atkins, Madam Superintendent, board members, is there a need for an executive session to discuss personnel matters?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Atkins.
You have before you the updated personnel agenda. The changes are in red. An updated copy has been provided to members of the press and to the public, but I will read over the changes.
I didn't get one.
Oh, did you not? Oh,
I'm going to pick up yours.
Madam Superintendent, you might want to speak back.
There's an extra one. Everybody got one?
okay. Under professional, strike the sixth grade teacher, both sixth grade teacher positions at Summersville Middle School. Both of those will be reposted. For substitute teacher, added the name Caitlin Mullins. Under professional extracurricular, David Diller, employee in the position of temporary support staff, girls basketball at Richwood High School, effective upon completion of any applicable WBDE, WBSSAC requirements. Mike McKinney, employee in the position of head basketball coach at Richwood High School, effective upon completion of any applicable WBDE, WBSSAC requirements. Or baseball, sorry. For football coach, we are striking that. They do have applicants, and they had scheduled interviews today, but they had to reschedule the interviews, so they're conducting interviews for that. David Diller, employee in the position of temporary support staff for track at Richwood High School, effective upon completion of any applicable WBDE, WBSSAC requirements. Stephen Taylor, employee in the position of temporary support staff wrestling at Richwood High School, effective upon completion of any applicable WBDE, WBSSAC requirements. Under consent, Gary Adams resigns his position as custodian at Richwood High School, effective January 7th, 2022, due to retirement. Pam Taburin resigns her position as special education teacher at Cherry River Elementary School, effective June 30th, 2022, due to retirement. And for the approved volunteers, add Melissa Russell. And also on page 3, you have leave requests from employees. I will not read those aloud to protect their privacy.
there any questions from Mrs. Atkins in regard to personnel matters? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented this evening? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion regarding the personnel agenda?
Will we need to post another position for principal out with him?
Yes. Yeah, and I will do that tomorrow.
Any further discussion regarding personnel matters? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's information, construction, planning, architectural update.
The construction equipment, we got the bond, actually, the contractors got the bond on Friday at 4 o'clock. Was it Friday? Thursday. 4 o'clock, started moving in equipment immediately. And so today, I was out there early in the morning and they had 3 big pieces of equipment ripping up pavement. And so they're well underway. There will be, job trailers and stuff set up. So if, you want to go out and see the site, the construction site, there's areas that we can go to. We have 3 cameras that will be mounted for viewing of the work, and we want them to be live cameras. Unfortunately, there's solar packs that go with those cameras, and those are back ordered or a delay in those being brought in. So we got a couple week delay, unfortunately, but I plan to have live cameras on that.
I'm going to actually try, those cameras either are 12 or 24 volt. I'm going to try just to get a couple car batteries and try to get those live as soon as possible.
Let's see if we can.
And maybe I can just go charge them once a day or every few days or something. Just to try to get them up so everybody can start seeing progress.
And the contract, all that earthwork will be completed by May. That's the contract. It's a lot to be moved, so it will be completed by May. I also have Skanska's representative here, Mike Hall, if anybody has any questions for him. He's actually, Skanska, they're on site to monitor the progress, which is good.
Mike, you were out there today. What happened this morning out there? Were they?
Yeah, no, they started fairly early. They started taking out asphalt, as the superintendent pointed out. They started taking out asphalt and guardrail. They've got all their equipment that they need for the first stage really on site. I think they still have a couple of large trucks to bring in, but they've got three excavators, 3 dozers, salamander, and a couple other pieces of small equipment on site. They had 6 men on site today, plus the surveyors who have already mapped out the new gas line. They've mapped out the limits of disturbance. They've mapped out all the silt fence locations. So they've been hard at it. The rain came in about 10:22, and they just kept right on going. Didn't slow them down a bit. So they're at it hot and heavy. They didn't come off site. When I left, they were still there. They were coming off site at about 5. So they put in a good solid 10 hours today.
When you speak about the fencing, is that, that will come out around that whole area, I would assume?
Silt fencing will go in any location where you need sediment control, erosion and sediment control. That's the black, fabric fencing. Now the fencing contractor for the temporary construction fence will be on site, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday. That's the same day the job trailers are supposed to show up and be delivered. And temporary power should be somewhere in that Wednesday or Tuesday to Friday, tomorrow to Friday time frame for the job trailers. And when those are on site, of course, the board members are more than welcome. We will have a representative, either be myself, another Skanska employee by the name of Kaylee Rose, and soon we hope to have another full-time person so that I can be back to site visits once a week. We'll have someone here 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, as long as the contractor's on site. But we're still kind of feeling out, trying to find a good person to fit in that role. But, yeah, the temporary fencing will be installed by Bosley. They're bringing in a contractor to do the temporary fencing, which is the construction gates that you'll have to go through to get to the construction site, so it won't be wide open to the general public, so that it's a secured project site. And those will go, you know, of course, on the uphill side of the entrance to the businesses, and then over on the other side of the helicopter pad.
And we can schedule times that board members can go up and get into contact with Skanska.
Yeah,
So
definitely
they
get in
can
contact
expect-
with an on-site representative,
Yep.
so that you're not just walking around on site, because a vest is required, hard hat, things like that are required to be on site. We would want someone to be just on site, you know, without being escorted by someone, just to keep safe.
Mr. Moose, do you have a hard hat? I mean, did you receive one? That's not a joke.
Well,
Did you receive a hard hat and a vest?
No, he would not.
No,
Okay,
those will
can
get,
we,
yeah.
We absolutely
they'll
can.
get you a hard hat and a vest that you wear
Who
on
is this
site.
gentleman? Who is this gentleman?
Mike Hall.
I'm with Skanska, your construction manager.
So everyone else, you guys kept your helmets and your vests.
We have them.
So those are needed when you go out, so.
What about Monday and Tuesday you cannot work? Will you work on Saturday?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they have requested to work as many days in a row as possible. The contract allows for Monday through Friday, up to, I believe it lists something like 10 hours a day in order to keep, because eventually they'll be doing blasting, they'll be doing some other tasks that we want to keep inside of a certain window. And there needs to be certain oversight on the project. Not just a representative from Skanska necessarily, but a representative from the field testing agency, the agency that will be designated to test compaction, lift size, particle size, things of that nature, and they have a limited contract. So there's certain work that can occur anytime, but there's other work that has to occur when observation can be conducted over that work. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they could work 7 days a week if they chose, but not on everything. Because when they start to bring in lifts and start to bring in material that they're moving from other parts of the site, particle size, compaction, things like that have to be tested. And the testing agency has a limited contract as to when they will be on site. So they couldn't just work continuously. The contract doesn't allow for that.
No one has explained to me about the graveyard up there.
We can't get within 100,
Yeah, it's outside of our limits of disturbance.
Of
That is a no-go zone.
will not be affected. We are not allowed to touch it or go near it.
Will there be a wall on this side of it, or the school side?
I don't have the plans with me. There is a retaining wall in that area, but I'm not sure of the height or the exact location, but it is off of project site.
Can you see any of the equipment from the road?
Not really. As you come over the hill a little bit, if you look to your left, you might be able to see some of the stuff, if they've got some stuff at the top of the hill, but right now they're focusing their efforts on getting the blacktop up from the existing road. They started at the cul-de-sac end where the guardrail was at, all the guardrails out. The blacktop is all gone up to the last turnoff where we went up on the hill for the groundbreaking. So all the blacktop is out to that point, and they'll keep coming up the hill with the removal of the blacktop till they get to the point where the blacktop will actually stop, and then we're going to start into their sediment ponds, their silt fencing, and actually start moving dirt.
So you've already took up that little turnaround?
Already on. And it was thick. It was anywhere from 8 to 12 inches thick. That's the heaviest blacktop I've ever seen. They got it out. They went at it hard.
Will we be able to use that material in the field?
They're going to reuse some of it, and what they can break up, some of it's been taken to a designated location, and all that's, of course, being tracked for FEMA records. But some of that will be reused in the temporary parking or temporary laydown area, where we'll have our temporary parking in our job trailers, especially some of the stuff that can be brought into or made into smaller particle size and reclaimed.
I think that where that road came out there in the cul-de-sac will be 20 to 30 foot
Oh, yes.
underground.
You won't even realize
Yeah.
that was a dip there once the soil starts to come in. Yeah, that whole project site over the next few months is going to undergo drastic changes.
Yeah. Is a salamander like a pan?
It's just a large hinged truck, mostly used on coal mining and large earth moving projects.
Yes, true.
That's what we call a salamander.
They're good for bass fishing.
Slightly different kind, yeah, I see what you're saying.
And we also will see the silt fencing plus the additional construction fencing.
Right, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, the job trailers will be on site Wednesday, and as soon as you pull in, you'll pick up on those at the top of the grade in the temporary construction area. And there'll be two very large trailers there. One is going to be occupied by myself and the construction management team, which is where we will hold project meetings on a bi-weekly basis, twice a month. And then the other trailer will be for the contractor.
And the contractor, when I went out, so when the road splits and goes to the right below the cemetery, if you look at the road, so far above, so many feet above the road, you'll see the grass looks really green. There's a difference in color. And he told me that actually will be the height, basically the height of what the property will be. So if you go out there and you look at the cemetery, just look down below and you'll see this green area, real green. He said that is about the height of everything. So that really helped put it in perspective. I also had construction meetings on Friday with ZMM. I have some plans of the Glade Creek site, and I plan to have the architect said he would be available on the 20th. So I would prefer for him to come up and present just as he did on the Ridgewood schools. Have him come and present those plans to this board on the 20th.
And that's at a regular board meeting?
Yes.
They said at one of our earlier meetings, 2 years, they'll have Ridgewood, 3 years, they'll have Glade.
2.5 is what they're saying.
2.5 for Clay Creek?
That's what they said.
That's what we're pushing for.
We also will be utilizing cameras at Richwood whenever that starts as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Basically.
We want to have live cameras for both sites, so anyone that wants to tune in, they can watch the progress of both sites.
Will that be on the web,
We'll post that on our website and
Yep.
on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll link it from our website, we'll link it to Facebook.
We're going to make a construction page with stuff search rolling, and that way we can have reports and you can watch video. And
But after the 20th, I'll do, like what I did, 4 weeks ago, when I did the loop of the PowerPoint for Richwood schools and put it up. After the 20th, I will do the same for ours,
I know
our
this
other schools.
is not needed, but in one of Mr. Bayless's classes, would it be an advantage to show the students some of the construction and how it goes on, or would they be in the way?
That would be a call for the contractor to make sure that we can maintain student safety, and for a group, I'm assuming a class size around 20 or more, want to make sure you can maintain safety for them. Right now, there's only so much going on, so it's not a lot to see ripping up asphalt. But now, once they get into actual earth moving, and you see, then that might be a good opportunity for them to lay their eyes on what actually goes on, and anyone from diesel mechanics all the way up to potential civil engineers. Yeah, absolutely.
So Mr. Bayless, that's something that, he could work with Skanska to determine.
And we will have a trailer big enough if someone wanted to bring in a group that we could house them on site, do a quick tutorial, and then do a project tour.
That's great
So
idea.
you said if we want to go up and visit the site, we ought to check with you all first.
You need to at least check in with myself, or either someone from Skanska or the contractor. Just to make sure, just to make sure you have,
one of us.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
not till after Wednesday will we even have a place to be. Right now, I'm living out of my truck.
Yeah.
Now, how many trailers did you say they were going to have?
There'll be 2 primarily for this contract. Now, once you get into the bigger building package, there'll be project trailers for every contractor, there'll be storage trailers for every contractor. It'll turn into a small city on top of the hill, which will be, that'll be, again, when we get to Richwood to do that work, that'll be a challenge because you're gonna have to set up still the same small city in a much smaller space. But yeah, it'll be very similar kind of situations at both locations.
So if you want to go up and tour, we will have contact, so.
Absolutely.
Rocky is a point of contact, and if he's not available, Chris is. So one of those two would have access to get him. If they're not available, I can call, but we know who will be there, but Rocky's keeping his, his finger on the pulse, and he's coordinating and dealing closely with the contractor and.
Hallelujah. Let's keep going.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Any other questions for her? Item 9, reports. I did attend the SESC meeting last month. We had a couple good presentations on from Apogee on communications throughout the school district, and Chris probably knows more about that than I could speak about, but it's effectively communicating throughout your school system. We had another presentation by My Shield, which is a disinfectant manufacturer. And Rocky, do we use My Shield?
No.
It is a product that is produced in Princeton, West Virginia, and it's supposed to be very good about the issues with cleanliness and the kids and COVID situations. And so you might want to check with the SESC about that. It's called My Shield. And the last thing was the proximity learning. We have a presentation by the director on that. That is something that we're using in our county. It's new this year. And the director indicated that they'd had some pretty serious bumps in the road to begin with. He got personally involved and got a lot of those straightened out. And it's a lot of those problems have been corrected. And they're now serving about 1,400 students in our area of the state. Mrs. Gregory, would you like to speak on anything about proximity learning, about the success with our students or anything?
Well, currently I have about 40 students in proximity, and we have had several bumps, but it's many of the students are doing very well.
So, and these are our students that they're on our rolls in Nicholas County, but they're taking their education through the proximity learning.
And there are several special ed students, and they're doing very well.
Yeah.
Where do they take it in different locations?
No, they're at their homes,
Okay.
and it's
like
online school.
Now they have teachers, actual teachers that are
They
teaching
have
these
8
children.
o'clock class, a 9 o'clock class, a 10 o'clock class, 11 o'clock class. They have lunch at noon. And then some of them have other classes in the afternoon at 1 and 2.
So they're actually, just like going to school.
Yes.
They report in on those particular times and with an actual instructor.
Yes.
And then their work is assessed. And it's a little rocky getting started because I think they had some problems getting people
Well, with those
instructors.
West Virginia counties that chose to do this, it was a big influx of students, and they didn't have enough teachers, so they had to hire a bunch of teachers and then train them. So things were just a little bit behind, and there were some problems, but we're working it out. Charlie Phillips and Jason Butcher have been awesome to work with, and they're staying right on top of things, and they're very approachable, and I can contact them, and they're back with me quickly and trying to make resolution.
I know, again, he said that, and I don't think they anticipated having 1,400 kids in that program, but that's throughout southern West Virginia, I guess, and maybe even some other parts of the state, they have some kids that participate in that program. So, but that's good to hear that it's those. Anytime you start something new, you'll have some problems with it. So you have to get those ironed out, and but it is providing educational services for some of our students, and we're glad for the success of that. One other thing before I go on, I did want to mention that, and to the board. Congratulations to Coach Morse, Gene Morse at the high school. He was named the 2020 West Virginia State Football Coach of the Year by the Secondary School Activities Commission. So, and I.
Who was that, 2020 or 21, or?
Well, I think they do it a year later, but it's 2020, yeah, that's what it said on the notification.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's worked hard, his teams have gone numerous times to the state finals, and so.
Coached there for years.
Yeah, and he's coached many years, and we appreciate his service to the kids and what he's done, and so, but I wanted the board to know, if you didn't see that he did receive that award. Further under reports, Bright Horizons, Mrs. Kaufman.
I haven't had a meeting since the last report I gave.
Okay, moving along. Madam Secretary, do we have any delegations tonight?
No, sir.
Thank you. Board members, items for future agendas. Would you like to talk about my Christmas present? I'm being ignored. Okay.
That's one.
Okay, future meetings. LSIC meeting next Tuesday night, December the 14th. Please mark your calendars. At Golly River Elementary, we'll be hearing from Golly River Elementary, Glade Creek Elementary, Summersville Middle, Nicholas County High School, and Nicholas County Career and Technical Center. Regular meeting on December the 20th. Then we have our next regular meeting after that is January the 3rd here at the board office. And then on January the 11th, we have the final of our LSIC meetings, and it will be at Mount Lookout Elementary, and we'll hear from Mount Lookout, Mount Nebo, Zila, Birch River, and Summersville Elementaries at that particular meeting. And our final meeting for January is January the 18th here at the board office. And I think, is that a Tuesday or is that a Monday?
No, it's a Tuesday.
Okay, it says Monday on there. Please mark down
I'll fix
that that's a Tuesday. It's after Martin Luther King Day. Okay?
Mr. Penix?
Yes, sir.
December the 14th, I may not be able to make it there. I have a family member that's going to have an operation at St. Mary's in Huntington. And that's a 3-hour drive.
Down and back, yeah.
And 3 back. So, but I'll try to be there, but I don't know. They will not say what time the operation will be until the day before.
Well, we hope things go well with that, and we understand if you're not able to be with us. Some events that are coming up. You received notification from the Secretary in regard to some Christmas programming that's going on. I know one was from Summersville Elementary. I think that's on the 20th of December. We have some Richmond High School band concert is on the 16th, and I think, is that, is it St. Luke's?
Is it St. Luke's? I messaged, Mr. Williams, and he said it wasn't St. Luke's.
St. Luke's.
I received a couple more this afternoon, but I was busy and didn't get to forward, so I will send those out to you in the morning.
Okay, and we had a couple of other events for Summersville Middle School and Nicholas County High School in regards to band concert, choir concert. Did you all receive your email today about the judging the door decorations at one of the high schools? Did you all get that today?
I can do that.
I haven't checked it.
I can do that.
December the 16th, I think they're looking for people to judge a
The Christmas
decoration.
doors, yeah, the teachers and the kids decorate the doors.
And I think it was Nicholas County High
You did
School.
it before.
Yeah, it's Nicholas
Yeah,
County High School.
Gus and I did the high school. Did we do the, Glade Creek done it as well?
Yeah, we did there, so.
Yeah,
Check your emails if you can be available to help out with those. They'd appreciate it, I'm sure, so.
that's
yeah.
fine.
I remember last year, golly, I did. Judged on that.
Yep, I remember that.
You're doing a good job.
So
Doing a good job.
please look to your emails, and if you can make some of these programs, you certainly can't make all of them, but if you can make one or two of them, it's a wonderful opportunity to see the kids perform and do various things. If there's no other business to come before the board tonight, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, we adjourn at 6:36 PM.